last 4 years how when Trump signed an executive order that we would have a federal judge nullify it or hold it up by putting an injunction. And if anybody can, or Todd, can you address, we just watched 4 years when Trump would sign an executive order. So we know there's 3 ways to cancel an executive order. So either the president's going to repeal it, didn't do it, or the Congress, but then he can veto it, and then it takes 2/3 majority. Probably not. The most likely scenario is a federal judge. Can you address that, or?
Correct.
Okay. And I'm just wondering why somebody hasn't said this is illegal, this is...
Well, as to these vaccines and the mandates that are coming out, I mean, that's exactly what we're asking the judge in this federal contractor case to do.
Okay.
And that might go all the way to the Supreme Court. Sorry, I just didn't, not to sound flippant, I just didn't understand where you're going with it. Now, some of those other lawsuits, the OSHA one, that's a regulation, so not an executive order, but promulgated by an executive order. So it was an executive order to tell the agency to do a rule. So you're ending up here with federal judges and ultimately the Supreme Court. I mean, that's where all this is going. And so when I was talking earlier about how different groups of states are grouping together in different circuits, it's because we're strategically getting to a point where the Supreme Court will ultimately hear different decisions made by different judicial circuits, okay? So that's how this is kind of lining up. And bottom line is, who you pick as president is important because they will pick these judges under Article 3 of our Constitution.
Okay, so yeah, because there was so many political ones that really fall in your realm, and it was all pretty much around the same thing. And I think your lawsuit is addressing it because people have said, why can't we collaborate with the other states and do, and do what they're doing? But that's exactly what you're doing. That's what you're.
That's exactly what we're doing. With the OSHA lawsuit, we are going alone in the 7th Circuit, so we have that basis covered. Other states have grouped together based on the strength of those circuits. So it's not like we're doing this willy-nilly. There have been conversations between attorneys general, several of them, and our staffs. So there's different reasons. I don't want to really get on the record as to the detail why, because frankly, it could be used as evidence. So leave me alone there for a little bit, but no. Know that this is not willy-nilly. The other thing I wanted to mention, why we're going with Mississippi and Louisiana. There's slightly different fact patterns, and that could determine who you go with in terms of which states and which states you want to group with, in addition to just the judicial circuit. So that has a role to play. So that's another reminder, please. If you're a state employee, if you're a university employee, if perhaps you're with the Indiana Guard and you're getting a notice from the federal government, or your entity or employer is getting a notice, please get that to us at the Attorney General's office. Please get that to Maureen, please get that to JJ, they will get it to us. We need that evidence, so that's very, very important. And finally, in terms of grouping together with other states, these are David and Goliath battles. So I get it. I like having a lot of Davids with us too. And we do that in basically everything we do.
The next one was about social media and the silencing of conservative voices and what's happening, and what can we do about that? For instance, about Facebook, and I know my mom's 79 years old and posted just something and they banned her. So I mean, I know this is happening to a lot. So it's the media, it's that. Are we doing anything, or what can be done about that?
So I can take that from our office to let you know that, again, Attorney General Todd Rokita is working on this. So shortly after Attorney General Rokita took office, we filed 5 investigative subpoenas, if you will, to actually ask Big Tech, what were they doing? So we call it our Big Tech investigation. And we are collecting thousands and thousands of documents from all of the big tech companies so that we can figure out what are they doing. We've recently issued a Parents' Bill of Rights so that you know what your rights are in terms of what you can speak. And we have, I think, no less than 5 lawsuits that are pending now against Google, against Facebook, so against some of these big tech companies, so that, again, we can protect your rights to be able to speak. So we are on that.
Next, what can constituents do to help end the vaccine mandate? So as ordinary citizens, what can we do?
Answer the last question.
Oh, okay.
If you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's on. Yes.
Test on, okay. So I wanted to ask, put some input in the last question about technology, invasion of privacy, freedom, for Facebook posts, any post on the internet. So I looked at a bill last session that dealt with this specific issue. Didn't have enough time to get it written. It came late. It was an issue that popped up just last year. But think about this, the fiber, the internet, all those infrastructures are either owned mostly by companies here within Indiana's borders or each state's borders, unless you're type business that goes over the interstate lines. Governments, we as a state also put money into those broadband fibers, and they are using our company's fiber, they're using the state's fibers to make a profit off of, yet they are telling us what we can and cannot post on our own infrastructure. So for me, I think that we need to look at a bill that says, if you are coming across our state lines using our fiber, our satellites, our airwaves, and if you have strip our freedom of speech, you will pay a penalty in the state of Indiana for using that. Really. So, and some of my colleagues thought, well, you could never do it. I said, hey, it's worth trying. So, and I'm going to try. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, on what people, I get asked that a lot, is what can we do? And now I don't do Facebook or Twitter or anything like that. I can operate a computer, barely, but I can do it. I think one time I accidentally launched a missile. But I tell you what you can do. Back in 1999, back when Clinton was president, and he was going after gun owners, gun manufacturers, there was about 6 or 7 of us got together in my area, down in Posey County, Vanderbilt County, and we was hopping mad about what's happening. I was saying, doggone it, I vote, joined the NRA. I figured I was doing my share, went to Vietnam, served 3 years in the Army. I thought, and then we got this draft dodging president was going to tell me he's taking my guns away. That's not going to happen. So what we started a group is called Segment Patriots. And one of the projects we put together, and it works really well, I'm going to share it with you. When we had something going on and we wanted to get our message to the legislators, what we done was a postcard campaign. And I'm going to tell you it works well. When I said a while ago I got a form letter? Well, form letters, guys, I'm going to tell you, it doesn't take much to put your name on somebody else's words. When we get together and you get 30 people, even if you get 10 in your house and you're having coffee and donuts, but the more the better. And you sit down and you write, everybody writes their message on postcards are real cheap, okay? You put your message, what the issue is. In this case, the vaccine, mandates, the lack of our top leadership in our state maybe not taking a stand where they should, whatever it might be. Be polite, but firm. Write it, don't write a novel, don't squeeze in so you write down on the edges and stuff. Just write a sentence or 2, paragraph tops, right? In your own words. Don't copy, don't put a sheet up in front of everybody and say, here's what you want. No, you write it in your own writing. Print if you have to, make sure the legislator can read it. And put your name and your address and your phone number on it as well, okay? And I'm going to tell you and what we would do sometimes if I had thoughts that maybe, rather than handing the cards to people and let them take them home, don't do that because they'll wind up by the TV. It's as far as they go. When you're together, like this right here, if everybody in this room today, were to fill out that postcard like I talk about and mail it to whatever legislator you want to mail it to, your own legislator or somebody else, or the governor, whoever it might be. You got to imagine how that feels when they come into work that next morning and there's 35 or 115 or 200 postcards written by people, their message, what they want to say in their own handwriting, their own misspelling. They were sincere. They put their message on there. You got it right inside the person's office. A phone call, they might get it, maybe not. Email, they might read it, maybe not. I read all mine. My staff knows everything comes in that office comes to me. Everything. I respond to everything I get. But you want to make sure your message gets to that person. The internet, it gets tangled up in a bunch of people's, gets arguments going, maybe not even really have a dog in the hunt, just want to see if they can rile you up. But if you get that postcard with your words in it and your message that you want that legislator to hear about, right? If it's you looking at losing your job, you don't want that shot in your baby's arm, you put it in that card, you get them together, and you send them. What we would even do also would go to different post offices and mail them from different locations so it wouldn't look like it was an organized effort, right? You got to play it right. But that is one effective way. That postcard, that little tiny postcard, is one monumental way to get your message in the guy's office, in the man or woman's office, and they're going to see it. It's impressive. And for every card they get, they're going to think, well, there's probably another 10 or 15 or 20 more people feel the same way. You understand what I'm saying? We got to take these opportunities, and that's one of them. I just want to share with you, it's worked well for us, and and now I'm on the receiving end of it, and it works well. Thank you.
Maybe you can, or somebody can talk about, I know for myself, I was moved to Greene County and I complained. Complain you remain, right? 20 years ago. And the importance of getting involved in your local community, because that's what really turned around. If you could talk about that, because if you don't like the officials, how many people know to go to your county clerks and get put on the election board or the working in elections?
That's right. A lot of people underestimate the importance of local government. I'm telling you, that's the closest to you, right? For sure, that's the person you're going to catch at the Walmart or on the other side of the gas pump. And these health boards, these school boards, these library boards. Now in our area, people are fired up and they're going to start running for these offices. We have got to move the people that has caused us trouble out, okay? Replace them, change them out, get our people in. We need our people in there. We need the friendlies in that bunch. And so on these locals, when these races come up, start out early. Get your name out there. And one other thing, and I won't dominate here, but when we go to these town hall meetings, this is another thing. I'm just telling you guys, there's so much out here. We can flex muscle, we just don't do it. Right. Back before I was a legislator, we would go to the town hall meetings, and they were always controlled by the liberals. Down in Evansville, it was always liberals controlled. They asked the questions. It was liberal legislators, got the patent answers. It was like they rehearsed it. Well, I told folks about how that works. I said, you need to go to some of these things sometime. So on one of these meetings, folks wanted to, so we showed up at a McDonald's. I told everybody, when you come, don't wear clothes with the same logos that shows you're all together. Don't do that. But when you get in that town hall meeting, and the way they had been doing it was the room had an aisle down between all the chairs, and the moderator would call one side and the other. I said, when you go in the room, you guys got to play smart. Don't sit, husbands and wives, don't sit together. Don't sit with your friends. Just spread out. Now, nobody's going to know who everybody is. And when one of our people gets called on, and they ask a question, and if that answer didn't set right, if that answer was fuzzy, hang on, because sooner or later they're going to get another one of our people. And when they do, when you step up, you say, you know, the gentleman over here, or this lady that asked a question, I didn't quite understand your answer. Can you clear that up for me? And it wasn't long before they didn't know who to call on because they were scared. Don't know who we're going to pick next now. And it got to the point where one of the legislators told us that, you know, you guys have been disrespectful. No, we were not. You for the first time, got a question you had to answer. It wasn't given to you hours early. Right. And you took it as a personal insult. But these people have a right. You have a right to ask a question, and you have a right to get a straight, square answer, don't you? And that's how we do those things. I'm just giving you a couple of ideas of what you can do. These are things that you can do as a citizen. I'm done.
Are we not having fun? This is truly information session. Let me tell you just real quick, because I always go to all the GOP meetings. Every county has a GOP meeting, right? Does everybody go to the GOP meetings or Democrat meetings? Lincoln Days? And I know a lot of the church people, I'd like to thank Joe and Phyllis Doherty, they're at my church. And I would stand up in church saying, if we don't get involved, the oppressor wins. Because you say you don't like politics and you don't get involved, whoever is involved, that's who wins, right? So thank you, Phyllis and Joe, they're my church members, and they came up and they finally said, you opened my eyes to how important it is that we get involved. So I'm always going to the GOP meetings, and I'm the youngest person there, and I'm 55. We got a problem. And then the Democrats invited me to one of their meetings in Bloomington. I was the oldest one there. We have a problem. I praise God that the little children that we have here, bring your kids, bring your teenagers, because that's when they form their minds and their opinions about things, and they learn best when they're little. I remember my grandpa back in the day when the sheriff changed parties, everybody got fired. He was a deputy, and he was a Republican, and when the Democrat came in, he got fired. So I was with him on his motorcycle, sipping Dave Doctor when I was 6 years old, and I learned how important that he lost his job because of politics. And praise God, I don't believe that goes on anymore, but that got me involved. I'm like, this is important because people can lose their jobs if they're not involved. I know a lot of the questions that we got here, you guys answered them. Thank you so much. If we have anybody wanting to answer, if you want to stand up, because a lot of them I think were answered, but some of the ones was Senator Braun, what he is doing. How does that go along with what you're doing, Todd? And they wanted to know, what does that mean and how?
Yeah, thank you, Maureen. From what I've read from what Senator Braun's doing, he's working from a legislative perspective along with senators, getting them involved to try to use a statute to roll back a federal regulation. It's called the Congressional Review Act. And I used it a few times when I was in the House of Representatives, so we'll hope for that from a legislative perspective to bring in that law. Then of course we're going to the judiciary branch to get relief.
Okay, and then this is the one that might be yours also, because a lot of people are saying, and somebody sent an email where I work, company-wide, they're saying the mandate is unconstitutional. Yes,
Well, that's one of the main arguments we're using to fight with. That is unconstitutional because it's really a congressional duty, and they went way beyond the congressional, the authority OSHA was given from a congressional standpoint. They went way beyond that in the sense that OSHA was about, if OSHA is even constitutional, and they fought that battle years ago, maybe it needs to be refought. But the idea of OSHA was workplace safety. And our premise in our lawsuit is that this is so far beyond the workplace, right? For better or worse, the Wuhan virus has been with us for literally years now. It's in our homes, it's in our churches, it's on our sports teams. It's at dinner and breakfast with us, it's everywhere. It's far beyond the workplace, and therefore using OSHA regulations to apply to a vaccine mandate is unconstitutional because it's a far overreach.
okay.